Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter from the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. As you know, we're pounding out articles and bringing you information from Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation Raiders Today. I want to encourage you now. Today's the day. Christmas has begun for football fans across the NFL, where everybody starts afresh. All of a sudden now we begin the legal tampering time until Wednesday when they can officially sign players. A lot going on. And also, it's very pertinent that I remind you a deal agreed to now with a free agent doesn't become official till Wednesday. So you can enter into an agreement with somebody, and all of a sudden somebody come along and offer a lot more money and then bail without any repercussions. Very important to remember. I want to thank you all for joining us at uh, Hondo SR on IG, at Hondo SR, and on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Hondo Carpenter, at HondoCarpenter. And additionally, thank you for going to si.com/NFL/Raiders for all of our articles and information. Now, it is imperative to dig in today and be very specific and talk about some issues surrounding free agency. A couple of things that I want to remind you of as we get into this process. I have been telling you for weeks that Antonio Pierce saw what a championship football team looked like when he beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. I expect the Raiders to be very aggressive when it comes to the offensive and defensive line. However, and there is a caveat, I expect them to be frugal but not cheap. So I want to go to the signing of Andre Sims yesterday. Well, and this is why this is so important. Tom Telesco has made it very clear he prioritizes re-signing his free agents. Now, obviously, he doesn't prioritize re-signing a free agent if he can get a better player. But he's just not going to take the, boy, you're a really good player and let you walk stance. So here's what happened with Andre James. And you can go back and look, I think it was 4 days ago, 5 days ago, we reported uh, the parameters of what a contract would look like if he, were to re-sign, and nailed it. And what happened is Andre had a lot of teams that were going to be very interested in him. There was going to be a market, a good market. In fact, I know of a few teams that were going to make a play for Andre James, because a couple of them, I had some friends who work for that organization ask me, what do you think of this guy? What's his personality and all that kind of stuff. And let me just tell you, Andre James is just salt of the earth. Just a wonderful guy. He's great in the locker room. His teammates love him. His players love him. I mean, his teammates love him. His coaches. Nobody doesn't like Andre James, the man. But it got down to, okay, here's kind of where the two parties were, and they were able to come to an agreement. Now, that was very vital for Tom Telesco for two reasons. Now, you personally may not like it, and that's fine. But I want to tell you why it was vital for Tom Telesco, because it was a demonstration to his locker room that, hey, I do what I say I'm going to do. I told you I want to re-sign our guys. I'm going to prioritize that. Here's one where maybe Andre didn't get everything he wanted. We didn't get everything we wanted, but we were able to get a deal done, and Andre James is back. So let's look very quick at the Raiders' offensive line. You got Colton, you got Dylan, you got Andre. Those are going to be three locked starters. Okay, and again, I say this all the time. Dylan Parham continues to be so vastly underrated by Raider Nation. I know a lot of you have great respect, but I'm talking about in totality. That young man, he's special. He is very, very special, both as a human and a player. Just terrific guy. And so that settled. Okay, but doesn't mean there isn't some other positions to fill. They're going to be looking at a lot of different places. Now, as this falls out, then they're going to understand their draft strategy better. Now, I expect them to be big players on the defensive line as well. Big, big players. They're going after some, to quote Pat McAfee, dogs. just they're looking and they're searching and they're doing a ton of research. They're going to be players when it comes to defensive tackles and possibly some other position, defensive ends. Keep your eye out there. I will also tell you, watch teams that are in salary cap hell. If a player just is like, I'm not willing to restructure or whatever, watch that closely. Not saying anything is imminent. I am saying, though, watch that closely because I believe the Raiders would be ready to pounce on a couple of guys immediately that could be huge impact players. Now, when it comes to a trade, how much is left on the deal? How's the player playing? I mean, it's got to be smart because the Raiders, Telesco and AP are joined at the hip in their philosophy, a lot like Dave Ziegler believes, that you have to think long term and draft picks are precious. So if you give up a draft pick, that's nothing wrong with that. But you've got to be able to have contract conditions and everything else equal to that. They're not going to just make a trade to make a trade and be stupid and mortgage the future by giving up draft picks. So again, if I had a couple of people email me again yesterday, and by the way, I know this podcast got out a little late. I don't know when you're listening to it, but I was traveling last night, coming back from out of the country. Had to be not had to. I wanted to be back for today with free agency, but saying, "Hey, I just read the Raiders have decided on X. No decision's been made. None. No definitive decision. So I'd be looking at trades, and I'd be looking, of course, at free agents that are available because all of it, all of a sudden you got a spot over here you didn't think that you'd plug in free agency, but somebody unexpected becomes available. Maybe they want to take a little bit less money than you think that you think their value is a little bit lower than other teams. So bam, you're able to grab that guy, you plug and play him, and then you don't need him in the draft anymore. You don't need to go address that position in the draft anymore, excuse me, is what I mean. So that's how all of this is built. No decision has been made definitively. Now, I think it's very important to discuss a couple issues. For several weeks, in fact, over a month, I've been talking to you. I told you originally the cost for the Raiders to move up to the Bears was 3 1s and 3 2s. It was a very astronomical cost. A lot of people were saying, yeah, but what about when San Francisco moved up to get Trey? They went from 12 to 3. Raiders would be going from 13 to 1. And when they moved up for Trey, it was 3 1s, and I think it was 1 2. But to move up from the Raiders to there would be 3 1s and 3 2s. Huge cost. But I told you, remember last year, Dave Ziegler had looked at cost. And they knew what the cost was to go to 1 and to 2. They knew all of those. And there was a window when they could have traded to any of those points. I don't know that I would say win at all of them, but certainly some top spot. I know at 1 for sure. Again, some other places, but that they could have. But I said, as long as the process goes out, teams begin to definitively know what they want to do, and then they're not going to move. So a few weeks, I told you, the Bears hadn't made a decision. They know that Justin Fields is very popular in their locker room, very popular. But 3 1s, 3 2s is what would get it. Okay, now they've solidified. They're not going to trade their pick. It's not available. 2 is not available, and 3 is not available. Now, you may remember that I said to you that I had heard Washington really liked Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. Those were their 2 guys. Okay. I stand by that. I don't think Jaden Williams now is going to go past 2. Maybe from this process and some pro days, maybe Drake May or JJ McCarthy. And listen, I was the first to tell you before anyone else that JJ McCarthy was going to skyrocket up boards, and he is. He's in play. I talked to someone just a few moments ago before taping this because we had texted a little bit when I was out of the country and just told him I was going to call him quick this morning. And I asked him, I said, I know several teams have J.J. McCarthy as the number one quarterback in this draft. And they told me they're not picking, but if they were sitting there at one in Chicago and the owner said, we want a quarterback, or the GM said, we want a quarterback, he told me it would be J.J. McCarthy for us. So now all of a sudden it looks like those 3 spots aren't available for trade. Okay. I would highly doubt, although I don't think it's impossible, the cost to go to 4 with Arizona is going to be very, very high. Super high. They want Marvin Harrison. Now, could another receiver move up and bump Marvin Harrison off? Here and another one could possibly. We'll get into more of that next week. Today's not the day for that. So as it's beginning to fall out, I've been telling you for weeks, the Raiders have looked at everything. So I also want to tell you, don't be so sure if the quarterbacks are gone that they don't want, that they won't move up. Now, you may remember I told you that I believe this is going to be 10 offensive linemen selected in the first round this year. 10. I think it's going to be a draft. I think the draft record's 5. I think there's going to be 10. After I reported that on this podcast, I had another NFL executive who saw it send me an email, or maybe it was a text, but just send me something real quick saying, I think you're wrong. I think it's going to be 11 or maybe 12. Those are astronomical numbers. There's some really good foundational bookend players on that offensive line in this draft. So I would not preclude, if I were you, that if the Raiders were to move up, and I'm not reporting that today, a lot of this is going to depend on how free agency and everything else pops out, or if as they define their plan, they're going to I would not be shocked if the Raiders moved up and didn't take a quarterback. If the cost at 1, 2, 3, and 4 is brutally high, and let's say your guy's Jaden Daniels or J.J. McCarthy, and they're not there, they're not just going to move up unless there's a specific window. So let's say there are 2 guys that they love. Let's say J.J. McCarthy and whomever, just whomever. Let's use J.C. Latham. And I don't think they're moving up to 5 to take J.C. Latham, so don't hear it. I'm just using this as an example. Okay, we know at 5, we're going to be able to get one of those 2. We're fine there. So I'm just saying to you, if they were to move up prior to the draft, it would be because there was a conglomeration of players that any one of those they would be fine getting. So I think that's a very, very big deal. J.J. McCarthy, a couple things in talking to this guy this morning I wanted to share with you. I've already hit this, but this is coming now from, again, another NFL executive. Of all the quarterbacks in the draft, he's the only one that ran a pro set offense. Thought that was very, very big. And he also said to me, and I thought this was important, every one of the other quarterbacks ran some semblance of an offense that they're not going to run in the pros. And so you're asking a player who was very good in one system to be something that they're not in the pros. And nobody knows what that projection is. So I just thought that was very interesting. One thing that sets J.J. McCarthy apart from every other quarterback in this draft, and let me tell you, I'm reporting to you what I'm being told. This is not Hondo opinion. Is that there's no quarterback in this draft considered among the top 7. And when I say that, understand the top 7 is not universal among NFL executives. I'm just talking about when you read in the media the top 7 quarterbacks in no particular order: Spencer Rattler, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy, Drake May, Caleb Williams, and Jaden Daniels. That among those 7, it is universally accepted that JJ makes the best pre-snap read. Now, I've talked to you ad nauseum about that. How in the NFL, where everybody's fast and the game is significantly faster, you've heard that talked about. I'm not the only one to tell you that. And I know that you guys are prolific football fanatics, so you know that the game gets faster at this level. So the pre-snap read becomes very, very important. In college, if you run a wide open offense or a spread or whatever, you go up and you know who your main read is, or you know I got to get the ball to this spot on the field. J.J. McCarthy was able to come to the line of scrimmage, look over the receivers, look over all the formations. He knows them well. In fact, it stunned people at the combine. More than one team told me they were stunned at his ability to read defenses. They were stunned by it. And more than one person used that word, by the way. And so he comes in, bam, makes his read. So he says, okay, it looks like I'm in cover 3, or it looks like I got a, over under or custom coverage over here. This guy's showing blitz, but I know in the film, whatever, makes the read. So it's going to put him prolifically farther ahead. It doesn't mean that that there couldn't be another great quarterback or a person who makes the adjustment well. I'm just saying those are some things that has made J.J. McCarthy. You may remember when I did my first mock draft, my very first one, I had the Raiders taking J.J. McCarthy in the 2nd round. And I put in there, one NFL scout told me, or NFL executive, if the draft were today, this is where you would get J.J., but it isn't where you're going to get him when the actual draft comes, because the more people dig, the more they're going to find out there's no blemishes, no warts. He is just very well-rounded. And so as the Raiders look, okay, are we willing to move up? I think it will not just be for a player, it will be for a conglomeration. Now, I want to get to the quarterback position because this will have a big deal. I told you 2 weeks ago, and then I told you a week ago, that last week, ending with yesterday, Sunday, that the Bears really needed to get rid of Justin Fields because his market value is dropping because teams know he's available. Teams know. It was just like with Derek Carr in the Raiders. The Raiders wanted to trade him, but everybody knew he was going to get cut. So there was literally no value for Derek. Now, Derek's critics see Derek has no value in the NFL. Okay. Then the people that praise Derek say, look at Derek for negotiating this deal. I don't think it was either one. Teams just knew that there's no reason. The lack of people trying to trade for Derek had nothing to do with his value. It had to do with how the situation unfolded and how it all happened. So don't rule Justin Fields out. I have said, and I maintain, the Raiders are going to add 2 quarterbacks. I told you right after the season, Brian Hoyer, Jimmy Garoppolo won't be here. They're going to need to add 2 quarterbacks. So I believe, ideally, the Raiders would like to draft a quarterback and get a veteran. That's what I believe that they want, because that'll give them 2 young quarterbacks and a veteran, and Aiden O'Connell would be the first. Is your starter going into OTAs, mini camps, and all of that. So do I think that there's a shot at Justin Fields, who's young, but he still has a veteran presence? Absolutely. Absolutely. Do not in any way think that door is shut. So keep an eye there. But watch closely to how everything goes, because these next few days, and then remember, in free agency, there are waves. So you're going to get a wave starting today, going through Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, probably somewhere in that. And then it'd be a little bit of a slow off. Doesn't mean you won't see any other signings, but then you're going to see it begin to pick up as the market readjusts. Be a ton of money spent first couple days, and then the market settles and it goes up again. And remember, it's just like the regular stock market. It goes up and up. And so there is an adjustment period. I want to very quickly talk to you about Germain Illuminor. I know for a fact there are multiple teams interested in Germain Illuminor. And while I know that Raider Nation, not all by any stretch, but some have had their issues with Germain, he is sought after. He's a guy that is so versatile, offers you so many different things that he's there. Someone asked me this morning, well, they may have asked me the other day. I just read the email this morning. I should have printed it. I apologize about that. But they asked me, do you think the door is closed on Jermaine coming back to the Raiders? No. No. Not reporting it's imminent either. But that's just what's going on within those parameters. So big stuff. If there are any agreements reached today, I will come back and, of course, address all of those with you. But I think it's going to be an interesting day in Raider Nation. Not just today. I say today. I think today is the beginning of an interesting era in Raider Nation. If you are a diehard and you love to follow every single move, I'd get a pen and paper and start identifying what the needs are on the roster and then watching free agent contracts. Are they 4-year deals, 3-year deals, 2-year deals, 1-year deal, both guaranteed? What kind of guaranteed money? Okay. So Andre's deal was you're going to be here a long term. They gave him a big deal, lots of guarantee, and and good for Andre. And it's now solidified the center position for the Raiders. So again, watch defensive lines, watch potential teams with salary cap issues. Not reporting any deal imminent at all. Not even saying a deal will happen. But I'll just say I found out yesterday that there was a team who was over the cap, and so the Raiders reached out. Hey, is this particular player available? No. Okay, but they've made it clear there are some guys we're interested in that could be cap casualties. So hey, if you need some help, we may be players. So just keep our eyes on all of that. Remember, this could be Christmas. Well, this is Christmas in March for sports fans. So pay attention to all that if you would. We're going to have a lot coming, a lot of information flowing your way. Look forward to sharing it with you. Thank you for joining us. And remember, it's here we go. Now, I want to tackle two other issues. One other issue, excuse me. You may remember when Seattle traded Russell Wilson to the Broncos, everybody was talking about all that Bronco defense with Russell Wilson. They're going to unseat Kansas City. And you can go back, you can look at what I wrote, you can look at social media. I said at the time, I really personally like Russell Wilson, and I do. If you've not met him, terrific kid. And I know he's not a kid, but to me he is because I'm old. But I also said to you, he's got a rookie coach. That's a team that's going to have to adjust to him. They're going to have to change everything. And he hadn't been the Russell Wilson of old. In fact, prior to him being injured before he got traded, he wasn't playing well. Okay. So then it comes and whatever. I am hearing, and I got a bunch of interview requests, and I limited them last week because I was out of the country, from people wanting to talk about, are the Chargers now with Jim Harbaugh instant competitors with the Kansas City Chiefs? No. 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 First of all, I mean, they're so over the cap. And unlike our federal government, they just can't go print money. That was not a political statement at all. Promise. Just a fact. I mean, we've got trillions of dollars in debt. That's not how the NFL works. It's a hard cap. So they're going to be a team that's going to be there. There's always an adjustment when Jim Harbaugh goes to a team. He just does things different. I don't, and I'm sorry, I may be the only one. I think Justin Herbert is a really good guy. But if you go back and look at the stat lines when he played Aiden O'Connell, when Aiden had all those interceptions last year in his first start, when Josh McDaniels would not change the offense, even numerically, I thought Aiden outplayed him. Do I think Justin Herbert in the right system, in the Michigan system that they ran last year, will be better? Oh, I think Herbert's going to be exponentially better as a quarterback under Jim Harbaugh because Jim's system fits Justin perfectly. But I just want to tell people, tap the brakes a little bit. The same people telling you that Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett were going to take down the Chiefs are probably the same people telling you that look out, here come the Bolts. I think the Chiefs are clearly the big dog in the East. Let's give them all the respect in the world. And they deserve it. The AP's coming. And remember, they are the team, the Raiders, that went into Arrowhead on Christmas, national audience, Taylor Swift in the stands, and took care of business. Don't forget it. Your Raider team at the end of this week. Now, hear me, Raider Nation. Take some of Uncle Hondo's Viagra for the soul. Your Raiders are going to be exponentially better a week from today. And then I think they'll be even better the day before the draft because I think it'll slow down a little bit. And then there'll be more signings because Tom Telesco is going to be very frugal, but not cheap. And then after the draft, you're going to be better. Better, and you're the last team to beat the Super Bowl champions. Come on now. You want to talk about the Bolts? Let the games begin. NFL free agency is upon us, ladies and gentlemen. Now let us partake of the goodness of the league. Enjoy this. Have fun. We're going to have all the analysis in the world. We'll fill you in. I think it's going to be great. Keep your eyes open. Pay attention. Watch what's going on. We'll see you all later. Have a great day. God bless you all. Thanks for joining us.